This was a jump session at the commercial gym. I started off with plyometrics and I feel like they're a very good warm-up for almost anything really. This time I was doing squat jumps with an extra 2 dumbbells of 4 kilos each. These I feel make my jumps, the squat jumps, feel much easier because without having to deal with the swing of my arms, I can actually keep my torso in a more upright position and not really fall back or forward too much, which is something that I'm noticing happens much more when I'm doing squat jumps without any weight. They also provide extra weight, so they kind of make up for the fact that I cannot really swing my arms to get some extra force developed there. But still, the flip side of the coin is the fact that since I'm not doing the swing, then I'm not really getting used to that. So it's good to probably use the two variations, the weighted one and the free one, both in the program. So I should keep them both. I think I'm noticing a tendency within myself of thinking that progressing means just moving towards a harder variation at all times. So whenever I get to these quote unquote harder progressions, it's just like it's a new chapter and all of a sudden I am just doing that. And that has proven to be fine when I'm just increasing the weight on a barbell exercise. But just recently, when I'm thinking about the handstand push-ups, the eccentrics that I was doing, without counting the fact that I am dealing with a bit of an injury in my hip, which is preventing me from using the right kick up and all that stuff. What I mean is that as soon as I felt like I could do the eccentrics for the handstand push-up from a freestanding position, I stopped doing them on the wall. And the fact that I wasn't really able because of the injury, so an external factor was influencing the way that I was getting into the handstand, I was then getting less reps and less quality out of my sets. So if I had not jumped off from doing the handstand on the wall while adding the freestanding variation, I probably would not have lost as much as I feel I did in the end. Apologies about the very convoluted way of trying to explain myself. It's just that I am so used to thinking about progression in the terms of strength training with loads that you progressively increase that it takes me some time. I need to think about the fact that if there is no barbell involved and if it's an exercise that is more in the spectrum of athletics or strength, speed or power, I don't think that the basic strength training progression of just increasing the weight, even though manipulating stuff like volume and intensity, so reps and sets, is the best way to do so, because there is a lot of neurological component that in a normal barbell exercise or a normally loaded exercise, it's kind of easy to get proficient at and master to the point where at some point you just keep adding load to the bar. But because these movements are kind of more complicated, there are more variables at play and they use different planes of motion. I think that it's more important to then getting the exposure to the movement rather than trying to optimize the load, because the load is not going to be as heavy as a heavily loaded barbell squat or a bench press or a deadlift. So the fact that the load is relatively lighter, even though the intensity is high because a jump is a high intensity exercise, it's important then to increase the amount of exposure, so the amount of sets and repetitions in that movement with appropriate rest times, of course, then to just trying always to get a harder variation of that very movement. So in the case of plyometrics, it's good that I'm able to progress to adding some weight to certain exercises like the squat jumps or even the kneeling jumps if I at some point would like to get some weighted stuff there, even though it really relies a lot on the arm swing to get the thing done. But what I mean is stuff like plyometrics and explosive stuff, I am noticing now that I'm going through the process of getting better at them, that it is good to progress them, but the more variations I can keep in that load the movement in a slightly different way, probably the better it is, because ultimately what I'm trying to develop is shorter ground contact times, faster and stronger stretch reflex and stretch shortening cycle. So I think that at that point it's all neurological, and the faster I'm able to move, the more power I'm able to generate then, and therefore I should be jumping higher. So I hope that I will be able to implement these in the future and not just think about that. Let's get these in. Ciao.